So a while back, we got the announcement by Bob Iger himself that Disney was proceeding with a number of new animated projects. Among them, a couple of sequels to famous cash cow franchises, the foremost among these being Toy Story and Frozen. A while back, I went through some of the reasons that I thought making yet another Toy Story was not a good idea. The story's wearing thin, and once again you're going to need the emotional ending of Toy Story 4 to be backtracked upon to bring our lead characters back together. Because what's the point if either Buzz or Woody are not in the film? But that left Frozen 3 untouched. And so today I want to go through the sort of same process, explain why I think that Frozen 3 is in some ways a terrible idea. Now obviously, let's get one thing out of the way first and foremost. Disney has every incentive in the world to go through with making Frozen 3. The numbers don't lie. It looks like it's an overwhelming triumph of the series. When the first film was released, it was heralded as a new era for Disney animation, and it really was. It was a new era for the Disney princess. It won the Oscar for Best Animated Picture, the first Disney Animated Studios film to ever win the award. It won Best Song for Let It Go, it was the highest grossing film of the year, and at the time of its release, the 5th highest grossing of all time, and the highest grossing animated film of all time. It was only the second animated film after Toy Story 3 to cross $1 billion box office, and only the 18th film overall. And this in turn very much paved the way for a sequel film, which had a lot of that success as well, grossing $1.4 billion, which, that's a lot of money. Yep. Sitting pretty as the second highest animated film of all time. And honestly, if you actually bother to ask Disney, they would actually probably claim that it is the highest animated film of all time. As technically, I think they consider the Lion King remake to be live action, even though the film's made using photorealistic CGI. And obviously, those are not real lions. Not really sure how they justified that to themselves, but that's the official line they hold to. They don't consider it animation. I guess they don't consider CGI animation at all. Apart from that, there was less critical success with this one. It had less awards, less accolades to hold on to, but you know, the box office does speak for itself. On top of that, the franchise, merch. This thing sells merch like nothing else, and probably also makes money on soundtrack sales and streaming. The songs are mega popular, especially with kids. And I mean the Anna and Elsa costumes, the toys, lunchboxes, whatever. I don't think they've ever really faded from popularity. So why not keep adding to the cash pile, right? The franchise prints money. I like money. Disney likes money. Bob Iger loves money. And so from that point of view, you'd have to be a fool to not want to keep making those films. It's their biggest franchise now. Milk it all day long. All day, every day. Not many franchises and not many studios have made films that are minimum going to cross that $1 billion mark. It is really absurd what a cash cow this thing is. And in the world of animation, in terms of financial scope and the ability to sell tickets and merch like hotcakes, really only Toy Story stands out as competition to Frozen. Maybe there are others, remind me if I've forgotten any, but yeah, those are the big dogs. It's a big money franchise. So I get it, I really get it. The lure is strong, and in another universe, I'm sure I'm making a video talking about how it's so weird that they're not following up on such a big money franchise, that they're leaving money on the table, that they could do so much more. And so in a way, you could argue that I'll never be satisfied. And maybe you'd be right there. Oh well, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Tough luck, Disney. And so from a business point of view, they have made the right choice. I think that's very clear. Continue the franchise, Frozen 3 on the horizon, maybe even more down the road as long as it stays lucrative. And if it does, I'd expect the Disney machine to churn them out every couple of years. It's just how the modern film industry, especially the animation industry, seems to work these days. Once you have that lucrative franchise, keep coming back to it. Return again and again and again. Milk every last dollar out of that bad boy. But that being said, I do have to wonder about the creative future of the franchise. Where else can they actually go? And do they run the risk of making this thing become very, very stale? Okay, so in my estimation, there are two main aspects that really appeal to audiences with Frozen. There's the story and the characters, you know, the narrative basically, the story arc and each of the characters' personal journeys, and then there's the soundtrack. Frozen and Frozen 2, they both had banger soundtracks that felt similar and yet different. So I'm not worried about that side of things. If nothing else, they'll always do well in that department and challenge for the best original song Oscar. If the day ever comes where they don't do that and the soundtrack sucks, well then the wheels have well and truly fallen off the wagon, I think. No, what I'm more worried about is the story. Where does the story go from here? How do they keep it fresh and exciting and different? Like Frozen 1, regardless of whether you liked it or not, it was very fresh. It had strong characters, particularly strong princess characters, a rarity. And it was a story of love and betrayal and excitement. You have Elsa, a princess turned queen, struggling with the weight of her crown and her mystical ice powers, who runs off into the wilds. Her sister Anna follows her to try and use the power of true sisterly love to save the day, alongside her love interest Kristoff, who grapples with his feelings for Anna, and their sidekick Olaf, who has wacky and zany lines and adventures. A royal betrayal is uncovered in the form of Hans, great twist villain by the way, and then the two sisters combine to end a natural disaster in the form of a magical blizzard that's plaguing the kingdom of Arendelle. A true classic, really popular, and like I said, it won awards and all of that, highly praised, well received. But then we come to Frozen 2, and to me, it does feel like they simply said, well, we've changed the actual story points, and that's enough because the original was good. And so they kept a lot of the same story beats, as in the overarching dot points that you saw in the first film. Elsa is struggling under the weight of ruling the kingdom, whilst also struggling with the weight of her mystic ice powers. She runs off into the foresty mountain mist area to discover the truth about her past, with Anna enlisting her partner Kristoff to go off into the mountains with her to find Elsa and to keep her safe. Kristoff grapples with his feelings for Anna, this time wanting to marry her but never finding the right moment to propose. Sidekick Olaf has wacky and zany shenanigans and adventures. There's a royal twist villain, this time with the reveal that their grandfather was actually a really terrible person. And of course the sisters have to team up once again to save Arendelle from a natural disaster, this time in the form of a flood. Like, yeah, the content of the films, it is different, but the bare bones story is similar enough that at times it does feel very stale and derivative. And I think people were able to recognize this fact because whilst it didn't do poorly in terms of its reviews, it did not get that same overwhelming response the first one did. And that's despite earning like $300 million more. It just didn't have that same effect on pop culture like the first one did, which if it had been a bit more fresh and different like the first two sequels of Toy Story were, I think it would have had that similar vibe. It would have had that same breakthrough moment and been really iconic. And so the fact that they couldn't even make it to one sequel, one single solitary sequel, before the story started to feel very derivative and samey, does worry me quite a lot. Because the more you do that sort of thing, the more tired the story's going to become. The less original and the less exciting. And I think for something like Frozen, they're far more trapped by the narrative than you'd expect, especially compared to something like Toy Story. Because with Toy Story, the gimmick is that the toys are alive and they love their owner. That's it. There's so much scope to work with there. But with Frozen, the whole idea is their sisterly bond and the ice powers. That's the core of the story you need to deal with. That's the heart of the series. That's the overall dynamic that you have to work around. That was the whole point of Frozen, to showcase the strength of their sibling love. But how do you keep doing that over and over and yet make it feel different? But they're locked in, because if you move away from that bond of sisterhood, which drives the narrative, it no longer stays true to the franchise. I mean, I guess you could do the reversal, have Elsa help Anna for a change, but even that should have been part 2. Now it's just going to feel a little too late to me. Because ultimately, the sisterly story's been done. Twice. Elsa's found her calling and the purpose of her powers. So how do you really bring the ice powers back into the story? She's conquered that. She's gotten over her trauma, hasn't she? The pair have united those two peoples together once and for all. Kristoff, he's been a very wholesome and loving partner, so adding drama there, I think that would be a mistake. What more is there to say and do? Are you going to have Anna struggle under the weight of her crown? Like, why? Cringe? I just don't think that would be good. What, are they going to have her have to balance wedding planning with being the queen? No thank you. And look, I know that storytelling can ultimately be unlimited, but I just feel like these fairy tale princess stories, they have a hard time moving on. Because they are locked in by so many important previous story points and character roles. Anna's the queen. That's a fact. Elsa, she's like a goddess, fairy, spirit type thing. Are they going to abandon their duty to go off on another adventure somewhere else, somewhere new, for the third time? Like, I just don't see how you continue the story in a way that makes sense and is satisfying without it feeling very forced. And so, in the end, I kind of do expect yet another rehash. Another box office smash, don't get me wrong, but a far more subdued audience response. I think it's going to be far more mixed a third time around, which for such a groundbreaking franchise is a pretty sad fate to me. So yeah, I am worried. I think creatively, there is no future here. It's done. But as always, they're going to keep doing it for the money. And I have to respect that, I suppose, but I don't have to like it. And so that's the end of the video. These have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. So yeah, what do you think of the future of Frozen? Are you on board for sequels, or do you, like me, think it's a bit of a creative blunder? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.